In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 NBA games happening on April 8, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start: if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Milwaukee Bucks versus Detroit Pistons. Look, there's this weird thing that happens in the NBA when a massive spread pops up late in the season and everyone just assumes it's a guaranteed blowout. People look at a record like 57-22 and then glance at a team sitting at 31-48 and their brain just goes, yeah, easy cover. But that's not how basketball works, and honestly, it's rarely ever that simple. The Bucks walk into Little Caesars Arena tonight as one of the most short-handed teams in recent memory. Giannis Antetokounmpo hasn't suited up since March 15th after hyperextending his left knee against the Pacers, and the saga around his return has turned into something bigger than basketball itself, with the NBA actually launching an investigation into how Milwaukee is handling his playing status. Kevin Porter Jr. just underwent his second knee surgery of the season, officially ending his 2025-26 campaign. Miles Turner is nursing an ankle sprain, Kyle Kuzma is dealing with Achilles tendinopathy, Bobby Portis has a wrist injury, and Gary Trent Jr. has a hip pointer. That's essentially the entire core of this roster sitting in street clothes. So naturally, the number on this game is absolutely enormous. And yet, here's where things get interesting. Milwaukee, even while operating as a skeleton crew, has shown they can still put together a competitive basketball game on any given night. They beat Dallas 123-99 just a week ago. They took down Memphis 131-115 on April 5th. These aren't fluky outcomes either. Guys like Ousmane Dieng, who's been averaging 13.6 points and 4.7 assists over the last stretch, and AJ Green, who's knocking down nearly 3 threes a game at a 45% clip, are playing with genuine purpose. Young players fighting for their futures tend to play with an edge that veteran-heavy rosters sometimes lack late in April. Now flip to the Detroit side, and yes, they're the #1 seed in the East with a fantastic 57-22 record. But let's be real for a second, they just lost to the Orlando Magic 123-107 2 nights ago. They dropped one to Atlanta the week before that, 130-129. They're not invincible, and the cracks show up more than you'd think against teams they're supposed to demolish. Cade Cunningham is listed as questionable tonight with a chest injury that's kept him out for about 10 straight games, and even if he does suit up, reports indicate he'd be on heavy restrictions right out of the gate. Isaiah Stewart remains sidelined with his calf strain as well. So the idea that Detroit just rolls out there at full strength and runs away with this thing isn't exactly airtight. Here's another thing people overlook. Milwaukee's record against the spread as underdogs this season sits right around 49%. In a season full of losses, they've actually been scrappy enough to keep games closer than the final score might suggest on a lot of nights. The Bucks have won 8 of the last 10 head-to-head meetings against Detroit historically, and while tonight's roster bears almost no resemblance to those lineups, the competitive DNA of a franchise doesn't just evaporate. Meanwhile, the Pistons are locked into the top seed with only 3 games left. The motivation to push through a full 48 minutes against a depleted opponent just isn't the same as it would be in February or March. Starters might get pulled early, rotation players might see heavy minutes. The intensity dial tends to drop a notch or two in these spots, and that's all it takes for a cover when the number is this inflated. As our first pick for this matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The scoring environment in this one actually looks pretty favorable when you break down how these two teams have been playing lately. Detroit's last 10 games have seen them put up 116.8 points per contest, and at home, that number jumps even higher, with the Pistons averaging 121 points per game across their last 10 at Little Caesars Arena. They just don't slow down on their own floor. The pace stays high, the ball moves, and guys like Jalen Duren and Dennis Jenkins keep the offense humming even without Cunningham in the lineup. Jenkins dropped 26 points with 8 assists against the Timberwolves just last week, and that kind of production from the supporting cast tells you this team is built to score in bunches regardless of who's available. On the other side, Milwaukee's defense on the road has been, well, let's just call it generous. Over their last 10 away games, the Bucks have allowed an average of 117.9 points per contest. That's a lot of points to give up, and it's not like they've been facing a murderer's row of offenses in every one of those games. The defensive structure just isn't there without Giannis anchoring everything, and Turner being out removes another layer of rim protection that this team desperately needs. But the Bucks can score too, even in their current state. They hung 131 on Memphis. They put up 123 against Dallas. Even in their loss to Houston, they still managed 113. Jay Green's three-point shooting keeps the floor spaced, and young guys like Cormac Ryan have had breakout performances, including a stretch where he went 16 for 22 from the field and 7 for 11 from deep over 2 games. When shooters get hot in a game with nothing on the line, the pace tends to open up even more. Detroit's recent games have eclipsed the projected number at a 70% rate over their last 10, and Milwaukee's have gone over 60% of the time. Both teams are trending in the same direction when it comes to producing high-scoring affairs. Combine the Pistons' home offense with the Bucks' porous road defense, and you've got a recipe for both sides contributing to a point total that climbs higher than the market expects. Late-season games between a team locked into their seed and a team with nothing to lose tend to play loose and fast, and that's exactly the kind of environment where the scoreboard keeps ticking. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Atlanta Hawks versus Cleveland Cavaliers. There's something about a team that knows its playoff seeding is locked up but still plays like it has something to prove. Cleveland sits at 50-29 on the season, firmly in the 4th spot in the Eastern Conference, and they've already clinched home court advantage in the first round. You'd think a team in that situation might coast a little, maybe rest some legs, keep the engine cool heading into the postseason. But that's not what we've seen from the Cavaliers lately, not even close. They're riding a 3-game win streak, and they've gone 8-2 in their last 10 outings straight up. Their most recent performance was a thorough demolition of Memphis, a 142-126 win that showed this team is firing on all cylinders when it wants to. And here's the thing, they're not slowing down for tonight. James Harden is back and fully available after a 1-game absence for personal reasons, and Max Strus has also been cleared from the injury report. Donovan Mitchell is listed as questionable with an ankle issue, but the context around that tells a story worth paying attention to. He tweaked his ankle late in Sunday's win over Indiana, then sat out the Memphis blowout the next night. That reads a lot more like precautionary rest on the second night of a back-to-back than a serious concern. He dropped 38 points on 16 of 27 shooting against the Pacers right before that, and there's been no indication from the team that he's at risk of missing extended time. If Mitchell suits up tonight, and the signs point toward that happening, Cleveland gets its full starting 5 together for what could genuinely be a first-round playoff preview. Now look at Atlanta coming in on the other side. The Hawks are 45-34, sitting in what looks like the 5th seed in the East, but they're only a game and a half ahead of Toronto for that spot, meaning this is not a meaningless game for them either. A loss or two down the stretch and suddenly they're staring at the play-in tournament, which nobody wants, especially a team that's played as well as Atlanta has this year. They just had a 4-game winning streak snapped by the Knicks, losing 108-105 at home, and that kind of loss can leave a mark heading into a road game against a team with real postseason intentions. Atlanta's only missing Jock Landale tonight with an ankle issue, so they'll have their core intact. Jalen Johnson has been a monster this season, averaging 22.7 points and 10.3 rebounds a game. And in 2 games against Cleveland this year, he's put up 26 points, 12.5 boards, and 8.5 assists per game. That last meeting back in November saw him post a full triple-double, 29, 12, and 12. The series between these two teams is tied at 1 game apiece, with each squad winning on its home floor. And that home court detail matters a lot tonight. Cleveland is 11-3 straight up in its last 14 games at Rocket Arena, and they're 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 home games against the Hawks specifically. Yes, the Cavaliers' overall against the spread record this year isn't great, sitting at 32-46-1, and they've been just 2-8 against the number in their last 10 overall. But that ugly against the spread number is largely a product of their road struggles and games where they've been heavily favored and haven't cared about margin of victory. Tonight is different. This is a potential first-round opponent walking into their building, and everything we've seen suggests Cleveland wants to make a statement before the postseason begins. The Hawks are a fundamentally different team than what the Cavaliers saw in November, with C.J. McCollum, Jonathan Kuminga, and Gabe Vincent all playing significant roles now. That's a wrinkle, for sure. But Cleveland is also different with James Harden running the point, and his ability to control pace and orchestrate half-court offense is exactly the kind of thing that translates into comfortable home wins. When you factor in the motivation angle, the fact that Cleveland has played its best basketball at home all season, and the likelihood of Mitchell returning to the lineup, this feels like a game where the Cavaliers don't just win but win with enough breathing room to cover a short number. As our first pick for this matchup, the Cleveland Cavaliers to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Atlanta's offense has been cooking all season long, putting up 118.4 points per game, which ranks 6th in the entire NBA. They're not just a one-trick pony either. Nickeil Alexander-Walker just set the franchise's single-season record for three-pointers made, sitting at 244 on the year, connecting at a 39.9% clip on over 8 attempts a night. That kind of volume shooting from deep creates a high floor for any team's scoring output, and when you pair that with Jalen Johnson's ability to get to the basket and finish at the rim, Atlanta has multiple avenues to pile up points in any given game. Cleveland, meanwhile, isn't exactly a team that stifles opponents into low-scoring affairs. They allow 115.8 points per contest on defense, which places them squarely in the middle of the pack. But offensively, we've watched them put up 142, 149, 136, and 138 in recent weeks. Those aren't anomalies. That's a team that can score in bunches when the matchup calls for it. And this matchup absolutely calls for it. Both of these teams play at a pace that invites possessions, and neither side has a defensive identity built around slowing things down to a crawl. The over has hit in 5 of Cleveland's last 6 games against Southeast Division opponents, which is exactly what Atlanta is. And in 4 of the Hawks' last 5 games against Central Division teams, the total has gone over. When two teams with this kind of offensive firepower meet in what amounts to a playoff dress rehearsal, there's no incentive to slow the game down. Both coaches want to see how their rotations perform in a real competitive environment, and that means letting guys play, letting the offense flow, and not pulling starters early. The last time these two played, it finished 130-123 during the NBA Cup group stage. That's 253 combined points. The head-to-head history, the pace both teams play at, the offensive talent on both rosters, and the stakes of this game as a potential first-round preview all point toward a track meet that clears the number comfortably. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Minnesota Timberwolves versus Orlando Magic. There's something about a team playing on the second night of a back-to-back, on the road, in a city where they got demolished just a month ago, that just screams trouble. And that's exactly the situation Minnesota finds itself in tonight. The Timberwolves roll into the Kia Center in Orlando coming off last night's 124-104 win over the Pacers in Indiana. Which sounds great on paper, but that kind of energy expenditure on the road has a way of catching up with you 24 hours later. Orlando, meanwhile, is sitting pretty at home with rest in their legs after taking care of Detroit 123-107 on Monday. That's a full day off to prepare, game plan, and let their bodies recover. Minnesota doesn't get that luxury. Here's the thing. The Magic already proved in the most emphatic way possible that they own this matchup. Back on March 7th in Minneapolis, Orlando walked into Target Center and left with a 119-92 victory. That's a 27-point beatdown. On the road, in Minnesota's building, that kind of result doesn't just happen randomly. It tells you something about how these rosters match up, how one team's style disrupts the other, and how the coaching game plan created problems that the Wolves simply couldn't solve. And honestly, Minnesota's situation has only gotten more complicated since that first meeting. Anthony Edwards, their franchise cornerstone averaging 28.9 points per game this season, has played in just 2 of the team's last 10 games because of right knee patellofemoral pain syndrome. Coach Chris Finch has described the situation as unpredictable, with Edwards being cleared to play whenever he feels well enough but dealing with significant pain on tougher days. He was ruled out last night against the Pacers for right knee injury maintenance, and tonight is the second half of a back-to-back. Even if Edwards does suit up, we've seen what he looks like when he's fighting through this. In his 2 appearances since the injury flared up, he scored just 17 points against Dallas on limited minutes and then managed only 8 points on 3 for 15 shooting in Philadelphia. That's not the same guy. That's a shell of the player who earned All-Star Game MVP honors this year. On top of that, Jaden McDaniels remains completely out with left knee patella tendinopathy, stripping Minnesota of one of their most versatile wing defenders. Orlando, on the other hand, is getting healthier at the right time. Franz Wagner, who missed 47 of the team's last 51 games battling a high left ankle sprain, has been gradually working his way back into the rotation. He's been available for 3 of the last 4 games and was off the injury report for the Dallas game. RotoWire reported on April 7th that Wagner is available for Wednesday's game against Minnesota. He's on a minutes restriction, averaging about 19 minutes over his last 3 appearances, but his mere presence changes Orlando's offensive geometry. Paolo Banchero has been carrying the load beautifully, averaging 23.8 points and 8 rebounds over his last 20 games, while Desmond Bane has been a revelation as the team's leading scorer at 20.5 points per game on the season. Jalen Suggs adds defensive intensity and 5.6 assists over the same stretch, and Tristan da Silva has chipped in 13 points as a reliable secondary option. This is a deep, well-coached Jamal Mosley team that knows exactly what it's fighting for. And make no mistake, Orlando is fighting. They're currently sitting in the Eastern Conference play-in picture at 43-36, jockeying for positioning with Charlotte, Miami, and Philadelphia. Every single game matters. Every possession counts. There is zero chance this team takes the foot off the gas tonight in front of their home crowd, where they've posted a strong record all season. Minnesota, at 47-32, has effectively locked down the 6th seed in the West and might be more inclined to prioritize rest and health heading into the postseason. The motivation gap between these 2 teams tonight could be massive. When you add it all up, the home team with rest, the revenge narrative after the 27-point demolition on the road, the likely absence or severe limitation of Minnesota's best player, the loss of McDaniels, the gradual return of Wagner, and a roster full of hungry guys playing for their postseason lives, everything tilts in one direction. As our first pick for this matchup, the Orlando Magic to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Now, the scoring environment in this game is where things get really interesting. Let's revisit what happened the first time these teams played. Orlando won 119-92. That's a combined total of just 211 points. And that was at Target Center, where Minnesota typically plays with more offensive comfort. Tonight, they're on the road. They're tired, and their best scorer might not even play, or if he does, he'll be a limited version of himself. Minnesota's offense without a fully healthy Edwards has looked like a car running on 3 cylinders. Julius Randle has done his best to fill the void, putting up 18.6 points over the last 20 games, but he's not the kind of volume scorer who can single-handedly replace nearly 29 points per game of production. Rudy Gobert gives you 10.2 points and 11.7 rebounds, but he's not exactly stretching the floor or creating easy buckets in half-court sets. Ayo Dosunmu has been solid at 13.1 points, and Dante DiVincenzo contributes 10.6 with his three-point shooting, but this is a Minnesota offense that loses its engine when Edwards isn't out there torching defenses. The Wolves scored just 92 points the last time they visited Orlando. They scored 87 in a loss to Toronto recently. They put up 103 against Philadelphia. The inconsistency on the offensive end has been glaring. On Orlando's side, while their offense has been more productive lately, there's a natural ceiling effect when Wagner is playing restricted minutes. He's their second best offensive player when healthy, but right now he's contributing around 11 to 12 points in roughly 19 minutes. That's helpful, but it's not the 21.3 points per game he provides at full strength. The Magic also ranked just 24th in the league in three-point makes at 11.7 per game, so they're not exactly a team that's going to light up the scoreboard from deep on a nightly basis. There's also the fatigue factor for Minnesota that should work as a suppressor on the total. Back-to-back road games drain legs, and tired legs mean short jumpers, missed free throws, and sloppy turnovers. The Timberwolves aren't going to come in here and run with Orlando at full speed. They're going to try to grind, slow things down, and conserve energy, and that style of play naturally pushes scoring down. Orlando's defensive identity, even through an injury-plagued season, has been one of physicality and length. They've got Suggs hounding ball handlers, Banchero using his size on the perimeter, and Gobert's counterpart in Wendell Carter Jr. if he clears his questionable status with the neck issue, providing rim protection. The Magic allow 115.2 points per game on the season, which ranks 13th, but at home and against a depleted opponent, that number should trend lower. The recipe here is pretty clear. A tired, shorthanded Minnesota team traveling on a back-to-back, potentially without their best player or with a severely limited version of him, facing a rested Orlando squad at home with something to prove and a defensive identity built around length and physicality. The first meeting was 211 total points with a healthier Minnesota team. Tonight's conditions are worse for scoring in almost every way. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.